Okay. Well, hello and welcome to Chapter 6. And 6.1 is our first lesson in a changing landscape. So our goal is to predict the impact of individuals and environmental systems and examine how human lifestyles affect sustainability. The far side for today is, whoa, Mr. Lewis. We don't know what that thing is or where it came from, but after what happened to the dog last week, we advise people not to touch it. Just a little silly. All right, moving on. Our objectives are to describe human activities that can affect the biosphere and describe the relationship between resource use, and sustainability development. So let's think about it. The first humans to settle Hawaii came from Polynesia about 1,600 years ago. They began to cut the trees, plant farms, and they introduced non-native plants, pigs, chickens, dogs, and even rats. This combination actually drove many of the native plant and animal species to extinction. But yet for centuries, Hawaii's ecosystems provided enough fresh water, fertile soil, fish, and other resources to keep the society self-sufficient. But progress does happen, and what happened next is an important lesson on managing limited resources. So our first goal is to describe human activities that can affect the biosphere. So what happened next was beginning in the late 1700s, new ways that settlers arrived in Hawaii. And they imported plants and animals that became very invasive species. They cleared vast tracts of forest to grow sugarcane, pineapples, and other crops that required lots and lots of water. They also converted land for housing and tourism, because it's just so beautiful there. Waikiki Beach, for example, is surrounded by built-up areas that support tourism. The effect of these activities on Hawaii's ecosystems and its human inhabitants show what happens when growing human population does not adequately manage natural resources. Like all other organisms, humans affect the environment when we obtain food, eliminate waste products, and build places to live. Most of us probably don't think of land, food, and water as limited resources, but today human activity has used or altered roughly half of all the land that's not covered with ice and snow. Some people suggest that as the global population reaches 7 billion people, our carrying capacity, we may be approaching the carrying capacity of the biosphere for humans, which I just said. All right, moving on. Modern agricultural practices have enabled farmers to double world food production over the last 50 years. Monoculture, for example, is the practice of clearing large areas, large tracts of land, to plant a single highly productive crop year after year. Monoculture enables efficient sowing, tending, harvesting of crops using these huge machines. However, agriculture impacts natural resources, including fresh water and fertile soil. Fertilizer production and farm machinery also consume large amounts of fossil fuels. Human effects, guys. As modern society developed, many people chose to live in cities, and then as the urban centers became crowded, people moved to the suburbs. This development has environmental effects. Dense human communities produce lots of waste that, obviously if not disposed of properly, can affect the air, water, and soil resources. In addition, development consumes farmland and divides natural habitats into fragments. Development in Florida, for example, has led to fragmentation of the forest there. The convenience of modern life require a lot of energy to produce and power. Most of this energy is obtained by burning fossil fuels, which are coal, oil, and natural gas, and that affects the environment. In addition, industries have traditionally discarded waste from manufacturing and energy production directly into the air, water, and soil. Smog, for example, is formed by chemical reactions among pollutants released into the air by industrial processes and automobile exhaust. So our objective, describe human activities that can affect the biosphere, we just did. Humans affect regional and global environments through agricultural, development, and industry in ways that have an impact on the quality of Earth's natural resources, including soil, water, and the atmosphere. Moving on to Objective 2. Describe the relationship between resource use and sustainable development. So what are goods and services? Goods are things that can be bought and sold. that have value in terms of dollars and cents. Services or processes or actions that produce goods. Ecosystem goods and services are the goods and services produced by ecosystems that benefit the human economy. Healthy ecosystems provide many goods and services naturally and largely free of charge, like breathable air and drinkable water. But if the environment can't provide these goods and services, society must spend money to produce them. In many places, for example, drinkable water is provided naturally by streams, rivers, and lakes and filtered by wetlands. If the water sources or wetlands are polluted or damaged, water quality may fall. Cities and towns must then pay for mechanical or chemical treatment as provided to provide safe drinking water. Ecosystem goods and services are classified as either renewable or non-renewable. A renewable resource can be produced or replaced by a healthy ecosystem. Wind is a renewable source. Some sources are non-renewable resources because natural processes cannot replenish them within a reasonable amount of time. Fossil fuels, like coal, oil, and natural gas, are non-renewable resources formed from buried organic materials over millions of years, which you know. Using natural resources in a way that does not cause long-term environmental harm is called sustainable development. Sustainable development should cause no long-term harm to the soil, water, and climate on which it depends. It should consume as little energy and material as possible. Sustainable development must be flexible enough to survive environmental stresses like droughts, floods, and heat waves or cold snaps. Sustainable development must also take into account human economic systems as well as ecosystem goods and services. So objective 2 is to describe the relationship between resource use and sustainable development. Again, sustainable development provides for human needs while preserving the ecosystem that produce natural resources. So let's review our objectives. Ask yourself, can you describe human activities that can have effect on the biosphere? And can you describe the relationship between resource use and sustainable development? Make sure you understand those concepts. And I don't have a pretty picture. What happened?